The Grizzlies are block office for sure, but are they becoming the villains of the NBA? Or is it just a throwback to when, teams didn't get along with other teams? Here is Klay Thompson from June 17th, Warriors star guard. From June 17th, he's calling out Jaren Jackson after they didn't play the Grizzlies in the finals. They win, obviously, Western Conference. They win the chip, and Klay has this to say about Jaren Jackson after he chips up.
There was this one player on the Grizzlies who tweeted strength in numbers after they beat us in the regular season, and it pissed me off so much. I can't wait to retweet that thing. Freaking bum. I had to watch that. I'm just like, this freaking clown. Okay. Sorry. That memory just popped up. You're going to mock us? Like, you ain't ever been there before, bro. We been there. We know what it takes. So to be here again, hold that.
Jay, what is he doing thinking about Jaren? He just won the championship.
So, look, this whole villain thing is funny. In the 90s or the early 2000s, like, we didn't have villains. We just had squads.
Yeah.
We had hoopers that didn't like other hoopers, and there was nothing wrong with not liking other hoopers. Like, as a fan, you may not rock with Dillon Brooks. Dillon Brooks on my team, I think I rock with Dillon Brooks. Jaren Jackson tweeting at Klay Thompson, they just want a chip. Why is Klay Thompson thinking about Jaren Jackson? Because he owns real estate in that head, right? Like, John Morant, all these guys say they want all the smoke. Like, they're climbing up the chimney. I'm all here for it. I welcome it. I miss 90s basketball. I miss having rivalries in this game. I've also said that I don't think this is a rivalry as of right now because Memphis hasn't beaten Golden State when it matters the most. But it sure as hell feels like we're trending towards Memphis being there when it's all said and done. And they're still a young basketball team. There's still a lot for them to figure out. We just had a conversation about Ja Morant and what he needs to work on by who he surrounds himself with. But if that's Shannon Sharp getting into it with Dillon Brooks, if that's Jaren Jackson getting into it with Klay Thompson, if that's, certain players on the team having issues, Desmond Bane being that, like, smaller, incredible Hawk-like personality on this squad, I'm for 90s style of basketball. Basketball today needs that in today's game so we can remember what it's like to not like your opponent.
Are they the I mean, if you think about the villains, they won championships, though, too. Like Detroit, back in the day, they won a championship. So they played nasty in a certain way. So they became the villains to a degree. The Celtics with Larry Bird and company, they had one championship, so they played dirty, and they were villains to a degree. The Grizzlies hadn't gotten there yet. This all potential, right? So they could be manufactured, I guess, as villains. But like Klay Thompson said, like, y'all ain't really got there. Y'all don't really know what it takes yet.
But let me point two things out. There's Klay winning a chip.
Talking about
Jaren Jackson.
Yes.
But I'm just letting you know that's the same thing. That's the same thing just happened the other day in the I want to say the AFC Championship game when it became Burrowhead. As soon as they beat them, they let them know, like, oh yeah, okay, Burrowhead might you know what.
Yeah, but Cincinnati's been to a Super Bowl before.
I'm smoking on a Joe Burrow.
The way he said Burrow is so fresh.
So much about the hype is that, and it's not that they're living in their head. They just letting you know. I got what you said in my back pocket.
You've made that case. What I'm saying is there he is, name-checking Jaren Jackson. And then also now Ja with someone in his entourage with a laser pointer, right? And that's causing waves. And
allegedly,
instead of saying allegedly, that's right, because Ja says this is not what
it wasn't his teammates.
Right. But I'll say this, though. Sometimes, rather than villain, we could say anti-hero, right? We could say they're the bad boys. Whether or not they win a championship or rise to a level, they are – and some people will root for the bad boy Pistons even before they won a championship, had a certain reputation, and it drew some people to them and turned some people off.
But, Max, I think about your boy. You always talk about MJ, right?
Yeah.
Who did Michael Jordan and the Bulls add to their team that gave them that edge?
Bill Cartwright, but
No.
you know, like
Dennis
who are you talking about?
Rodman.
Dennis Rodman.
Oh, that
Dennis
was
Rodman.
a second.
That was a second
three-peat.
chip. Yeah, but
The
I'm saying,
second
but
three-peat.
Bill also had some. Bill made some tough plays and elbows.
Well, they traded Oakley, who was that kind of edgy player, for Cartwright because they needed someone for 6 fouls on Patrick Ewing, right? Like they needed someone who could play.
So every team has a player like that. Like that's what Draymond Green was for Golden State. Still is to this day. That guy that's chirping. So like there's been elements of it, but our superstars haven't been at the forefront of it. And here you have Ja Morant, who is barking just as much as Dillon Brooks, maybe not doing the same thing, right? Like hitting people on the sweet spot like he did Donovan Mitchell, which I would fight somebody too now. But like when it's your superstar doing that too, like then that carries to the rest of the team, which is different a little bit than like a Dennis Rodman, while Jordan was considered to be like the epitome, or Stephen Curry's like, oh, like he's the good guy, where Draymond's like the heart and soul. You know, like now it's Ja and all these guys doing that.
Great distinction. By the way, back in the day in terms of rivalries, Dr. J, who was considered like the gentleman of the NBA, he and Larry Bird had their hands around each other's throats.
Yeah, man.
Had their hands around each other's throats. It was different back then. The NBA guys issued a FedExForum bans after investigating a post-game incident. The Athletic reported that acquaintances of the Grizzlies' Ja Morant confronted members of the Pacers' traveling party near Indiana's bus in the FedExForum's loading dock area after the Grizzlies' 112-100 win that night. The Athletic reported a laser coming from an SUV that it reported Ja was riding in was pointed toward Pacers players, coaches, and others in the loading area. The Athletic reported it was not known who shined the laser, which it reported some feared was attached to a gun. Ja Morant tweeted Sunday, did an investigation, seen they were capping, still let an article come out to paint this negative image on me and my fam, and ban my brother from the home games for a year. Unbelievable. Guys, Jay?
So the report also said, and I know people that have been at Memphis games, that some of those same individuals are outside yelling at the bus for a while, and them and Pacer players are going back and forth, yelling obscene things towards each other. Here's all I'm going to say to Ja and his team, because I think Ja is one of the most dynamic players we have in the game of basketball. And Shannon Sharp did a great job. I just want to acknowledge him yesterday on what he said on his show. And I have similar sentiments about, at a certain point, Key, I love all my friends, right? But like one of the things I've always loved and respected about LeBron and his crew is that his crew has evolved with LeBron for what they represent, because they represent LeBron and their own business interests. And at the end of the day, Ja has to recognize that if friends aren't making the best decisions around him in his interests, and Ja Morant Enterprises' interests, then he has to limit where they are around him in his life. I mean, you're talking about a guy that has a chance to be a player worth hundreds of millions of dollars, a guy that has a chance to be the face of the NBA. And at a certain point, he has to have a sit-down talk with his homies and his loved ones by saying, yo, whatever your actions are reflective on me. So before you open your mouth or before you decide to engage, I want you to think about how that affects me. And if they can't get on that same page, then they have to be friends in a different kind of way in your life. And this is something that all athletes have to face. Guys have talked about it since the beginning of time. And, I want Ja to win in the game of life, and I don't want his reputation to be like, hey, like he's around these people that don't have his best interests at hand, Key.
When you grow up a certain way and you become a professional athlete and you make a whole lot of money, it's very difficult to part ways with people that you've grown up with, family members, friends, best friends, whatever you want to call it, because you have a sense of responsibility for them. But at some point in time, that responsibility has to part ways if it's not going to go in the direction that it should be going in. it's not only on Ja, it's also on the people that represent Ja. It's also on the marketing people that represent Ja. It's also on the organization that he plays for to sit him down and let him know that this is probably not the direction you want to go in. Now, whether they was capping and faking like this is what happened to bring attention to Ja Morant and his family and brother, whether that's true or not, it's still something that's out there in the public. So what he has to now do is really what you are saying, Jay. He's got to say, yo, come on, man, let's just chill right now because we can't do this. Now, when I came into the league, as the number 1 overall pick, I had it wasn't no such thing as not having a crew and an entourage and a whole bunch of homeboys. But as I've always told my friends, we going to eat together. The moment that something goes wrong, it's going to affect me, so we're not going to be able to eat because I'm the breadwinner and I'm the one that's is put in this position so we all could benefit off of it. But if we going to be out here acting like knuckleheads and doing things that's going to send a bad message, these sponsorship dollars are going to go away. Therefore, that means I'm not going to make the type of money that I'm supposed to make, which means that I'm not going to have the power to put you in a position so that you can make the type of money. So now, you know what I'm saying, we screwing everything up. And he's got to just have that conversation if he hasn't already. And they've got to accept it and realize that at the same time. We can't get all bent out of shape because, there's always 2 and 3 sides to a story. There's no question about it. But the fact of the matter is that it's out there. And we've seen too many instances already with the Grizzlies' young team having issues that involve Ja Morant and his dad and other people in his family. So now it's time to take a step back and really assess the situation and really look at it and say, okay, what are we doing wrong here and try and correct that?
So I imagine it's difficult, especially for young people are susceptible to peer pressure, right? And especially if you've now made it big, there is pressure. Oh, you forget where you come from, or oh, you changed, or whatever. Well, of course.
Of course, I've changed.
Of course, you have changed. You're an adult now. You used to be a kid. You're dealing with international media pressure, let alone your local market when you're on Ja's level.
Max, it's like when some of my single friends are like, Jay, you changed. I'm like, yeah, I have 3 kids and a wife.
Yeah.
Yes, I've changed.
And hopefully your friends as they get older, and you have largely introduced them to new parts of the world, right, have changed too. You mentioned LeBron James, Jay. LeBron James seemed to me to give opportunities to people around him. And then they could do what they want with the opportunity.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN Plus right now.